She waited until the dishes were done. That's the part I'll never forget. Not the words she said. Those burned into me like a brand. But the calm, deliberate way she dried her hands, turned off the kitchen light, and sat down across from me at the table like she was about to pitch a new budget plan. Not talk about opening our marriage. I think we should try an open marriage. The words left her lips so casually, as if she were suggesting we switch to oat milk or take a weekend trip to Asheville. She folded her hands together and tilted her head, watching me with a mixture of anticipation and something else I couldn't quite place. Guilt? No. It was too practiced for that. Rehearsed. I didn't say a word. I just stared at her, really looked at her. The sharp collarbone visible beneath her blouse, her lips glossed in that mauve shade she only wore when she was going out without me. I noticed her nails were freshly done. Not a chip in sight. She shifted under my gaze. I've been reading a lot, she said, and talking to people. It's not as taboo as it used to be. It's about freedom, honesty, growth. Sex with other people doesn't have to mean the end of us. Still, I said nothing. But something inside me cracked. Because I already knew. I'd seen the signs. The sudden change in her wardrobe, tighter dresses, lace underwear I hadn't seen her wear for me in years. The late-night texting, the way she'd guard her phone like it held national secrets. The new perfume, the gym membership, the way she always looked just a little too styled when she said she was just going for a walk to clear her head. I knew. Or maybe I just didn't want to know. But this was confirmation. And I didn't explode. I didn't throw my chair back or call her names. I didn't ask if there was someone already. I just nodded slowly, like I was giving her permission to tear out my heart. If that's what you want, I said. Her lips parted slightly, surprise flickering across her face. That's it, she asked. You're not upset? I didn't say I wasn't upset. Then say something. But what was there to say? That I spent the last 17 years trying to be enough? That I'd built a life with her brick by brick, only to find out she wanted the option to leave the door open whenever she pleased? I'm listening, I said. You've clearly thought this through. She crossed her legs, the soft whisper of her stockings brushing together. We've been stuck. You feel it too. We don't have the same spark. We go to work, we come home, we eat, we sleep. Maybe have sex once a week if we're lucky, and even then, it's... She let the sentence trail off, the implied disappointing hanging in the air like fog. I nodded again, slower this time. So, you want to fix our marriage by sleeping with other people? She flinched at the sarcasm. Don't make it sound dirty. That's not what this is. I leaned back in my chair. What is it then? It's about being honest. Exploring ourselves. Not being owned. Have you already started? I asked. Silence. That told me everything. I could almost hear the blood rushing in my ears. So this isn't a conversation about possibilities. This is a conversation about permission. She looked away. I'm not stupid, Rachel. No, you're not, she whispered. I stood up and walked to the sink, the leftover soap bubbles cold on my fingers as I absent-mindedly washed a glass that didn't need washing. I couldn't look at her. You know what hurts? I said finally, my voice low and steady. It's not the idea of you being with someone else. It's that you didn't even try to fix us first. You went out there looking for something without telling me we were broken. I didn't want to hurt you, she said. Too late. She stood, walking toward me, hesitant. She touched my arm. This doesn't have to be a bad thing. I turned to her then, and I don't know what my face looked like, but she pulled her hand back quickly, like she'd touched a live wire. I need some air, I said. I grabbed my coat and walked out the door, not bothering to check if she followed. She didn't. Outside, the night was cold, the kind that made your breath show. I walked aimlessly, through the park near our house, past the swings and slides where we used to bring the kids when they were still young enough to want us around. I sat on a bench and watched the wind stir the leaves, and I felt like the ground underneath me had shifted. Not collapsed, just shifted. Subtly, but permanently. How do you go home after hearing your wife wants to have sex with someone else? Not because she hates you, not because she's leaving, but because she wants the freedom to. And the craziest part? I didn't hate her for it. Not yet. What I felt was worse. I felt invisible. By the time I got back to the house, she was asleep on the couch, or pretending to be. I didn't wake her. I just stood there in the dark for a long time, watching her chest rise and fall, wondering if she dreamt of him, whoever he was. Then I went upstairs and sat on the edge of our bed. Our bed. The one I built with my own hands the summer we moved in. I ran my hand over the wooden frame, remembering how proud she was of me then. How she used to say I could fix anything. Even us. I lay down fully clothed and stared at the ceiling, not sure whether I was going to cry or scream. Neither happened. Instead, I stared into the dark until morning came, and when it did, I was no longer the same man who had sat quietly at the dinner table and said, "If that's what you want." Because something inside me had shifted too. It started with the running. Not because I wanted to be fit or chase some kind of revenge body fantasy. I ran because if I didn't move, I'd fall apart. Every morning, before the sun rose and before she stirred in our bed, which she had migrated back to after our conversation, as if nothing had changed, I laced up my sneakers and hit the pavement. The cold air burned my lungs at first, and my legs ached after only a few blocks, but I pushed through it. Each stride became a form of quiet violence, a war between my grief and something else clawing its way out of me. Something angry, something alive. I didn't listen to music. I wanted to hear my own breath, the slap of my feet on concrete, the silence of a world that hadn't betrayed me. The first week, I ran just a mile, then 2, then 3. By the second week, I started watching what I ate. Not for weight loss, but control, discipline. I cut the junk, started reading labels like I was deciphering codes. I stopped drinking, even stopped biting my nails. Every little habit I corrected felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. And she didn't notice. Not when I started waking up before dawn. Not when I came back from my runs drenched in sweat, chest heaving, arms twitching from push-ups I hadn't done since college. Not when I cut sugar, caffeine, alcohol. She didn't even comment when I swapped my usual jeans and old polos for fitted chinos and charcoal shirts that actually hugged the body I was slowly chiseling back into shape. She was too busy with her exploration. By the end of the month, I had a new haircut, shorter, tighter, sharp around the edges, and I'd picked up a few new button-ups that actually made me feel something I hadn't in years, confident. Not just passable, not just presentable, desired, at least by myself. My coworkers started to notice first. I caught Susan from HR eyeing me during the Monday morning meeting. Steve from accounting gave me a nod that felt half surprised, half impressed. "You training for something?" he asked over coffee one morning. "Just life," I said, taking my black coffee to go. The barista at the cafe down the street started putting a little hard in my coffee foam. I noticed. I also noticed that she leaned over the counter more than necessary when I came in, and her smile lingered longer than it did with the other regulars. Even the guys at the gym started calling me man, not sir. But Rachel, my wife, she barely blinked. She was elsewhere. Her eyes were always half a mile away, focused on her phone, or the book she suddenly needed to read every night, or the new meetups she claimed were about mindfulness and not sex. But I knew. The woman who used to notice if I wore new socks now didn't even glance at me when I stepped out in tailored clothes that clung just right. Her silence was louder than any compliment. And yet, I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started planting seeds. The kind she didn't even know were growing. It was at the grocery store when I first saw the shift. One of her friends, Melissa, I think, the redhead who always laughed a little too hard at my jokes during game nights, bumped into me near the produce section. I was wearing one of the new slim-fit shirts, sleeves rolled up just enough to show the veins in my forearms. She blinked, surprised. "Wow, you look different." I smiled. "Different good, or different I joined a cult?" She laughed. "A little too long. A little too breathy." "Good," she said, then tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Really good." I nodded, polite. "Thanks." Later that evening, Rachel got a text and turned her screen away quickly. I caught a glimpse of the name. Melissa, the first crack in her armor. The next week, it was Kara, her other best friend. The one who used to roll her eyes every time the topic of marriage came up, as if monogamy was a punchline. We ran into each other outside the yoga studio downtown. She was wearing those skin-tight leggings that left little to the imagination, but her eyes did a slow elevator ride up my body before landing on my face. "Holy hell, is that you?" she said. "Last I checked." She laughed. "You've got a whole new vibe." "Trying to be the best version of myself," I said. "Well," she smirked, "you're doing a damn good job." That night, I got a follow request from Kara on Instagram. I hadn't even realized she followed me, or that I'd become someone worth following. I accepted, and I waited. Rachel was on her third girls' night that month, which I knew wasn't girls only. And as I sat alone at home, I looked through my followers and saw Melissa's name there too. And then, later that night, Melissa liked an old photo of mine. From last summer. Me at the beach, shirtless, smiling. The kind of post people only like when they're suddenly seeing you through new eyes. A week later, Kara commented on a gym selfie I posted. Looking sharp. Rachel didn't say a word. But I saw her glance at my phone screen that night when it lit up beside me. She didn't ask, but her fingers tightened slightly on her wine glass. The first subtle twitch of discomfort. I filed it away. You wanted freedom, Rachel. But now I'm not the one you're watching walk away. It was a Friday night, the third in a row that Rachel claimed she had plans. She didn't lie outright anymore. She didn't need to. The unspoken terms of our open marriage had been set. No questions, no explanations, no guilt. At least, not from her. She wore a red dress that clung to her hips, her perfume strong enough to linger in the hallway long after the front door clicked shut. She left without looking back, as if I were just a roommate she'd outgrown. The kids were at her sister's for the weekend. It was just me and the echo of footsteps, the clink of her wine glass still in the sink. I didn't chase her. I didn't ask who he was. I just waited until she was gone, then poured myself a bourbon, sat on the back deck, and let the silence roll over me like smoke. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed. Kara, you alone tonight? My thumb hovered over the screen for a second before I replied. Me, of course. Rachel has another date night. There was a pause, then another buzz. Kara, we're down the street at Bramble and Oak. Come out. You shouldn't be sitting in that house all night. I didn't think. I didn't hesitate. I just grabbed my jacket, locked the door behind me, and walked toward the bar where her two best friends were already waiting. The place was dim, with exposed brick walls and low jazz playing in the background. I spotted them immediately, Kara and Melissa, tucked into a booth in the back, a half-empty bottle of wine between them. Their eyes lit up when I walked in. Look what the hell the wind blew in, Kara teased, sliding over to make room. Didn't expect you to actually show. I didn't either, I admitted, easing into the seat beside her. Melissa handed me a glass without asking. Figured you could use this. I sipped. You figured right. We didn't talk about Rachel at first. For the first hour, it was casual, laughing about old stories, trading harmless gossip. I was surprised how easy it felt with them. Comfortable. And something else. Kara kept brushing her leg against mine under the table. Once might have been accidental. Twice was not. Melissa kept refilling my glass, and every time she leaned in, I could smell her, lavender and something warmer, muskier, not unlike Rachel's old perfume before she switched to something bolder. The three of us sat there for 2 hours, tucked in a booth, insulated from the rest of the world. Somewhere between the third and fourth glass of wine, the laughter softened and the questions changed. So, Melissa said, tipping her glass toward me, how are you really holding up? The way she said it, really, hit harder than I expected. I shrugged. I run. I eat clean. I sleep. I pretend. Kara leaned forward, chin resting on her hand. Pretend what? That I'm okay. They didn't rush to fill the silence. They let it sit there, heavy and real. Melissa's eyes were softer now. She's not who she used to be, you know. I looked up. She doesn't talk about you, Melissa went on. Not the way she used to. It's like, she cut out the part of her that was your wife and just left the shell. She says she wants freedom, I muttered. She calls it evolution. Kara laughed dryly. She wants sex without guilt. Let's not dress it up. The bluntness shocked me and stirred something else. I looked at her, really looked at her. The way her neckline dipped slightly, the flush in her cheeks from the wine, the shimmer of gloss on her bottom lip. Melissa spoke again, quieter this time. We don't judge you, you know, for staying. I don't know if I'm staying, I said. Kara raised a brow. Planning to leave? I'm not planning anything. Just waking up. One day at a time. Another long pause. Then Kara said, I think it's incredible. What is? That you're still standing. She touched my wrist lightly as she said it, fingers lingering. The contact was small, simple, but it lit something under my skin. I didn't pull away. Melissa saw it. I know she did. And yet, she didn't look away. She just stared, a little too long. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but didn't. The air between the three of us changed in an instant. It got thicker, tighter, filled with all the things none of us had the nerve to say. Kara looked at me. You ever talk to anyone about it? Like really talk? I shook my head. No one asked. We're asking. I felt something shift inside me. Some wall I didn't realize I'd built started to crack. I loved her, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. For 17 years, she was my whole world. And now she looks through me like I'm a piece of furniture. Like I'm not even in the room. Melissa reached out this time, fingers sliding across the table to cover mine. You're very much in the room. Her touch was warmer than I expected. I looked at our hands, then at Kara, who hadn't looked away. For the first time since the night Rachel dropped the bombshell, I felt something that didn't come wrapped in pain. Desire. Not just to be wanted, but to be seen. Kara's voice was quieter now, almost a whisper. We've always liked you, you know. You were never just her husband. I swallowed hard. The warmth from Melissa's hand. The wine in my blood. The unspoken tension radiating off Kara like static electricity. Nothing happened that night. No lines crossed. But something shifted, something fundamental. When I finally stood to leave, they both hugged me. Not quick, polite hugs, but lingering, full-bodied ones. Kara's hand pressed flat against my back, her cheek against my chest. Melissa kissed me on the cheek, soft and slow, her lips lingering just a fraction too long. When I walked home that night, I wasn't thinking about Rachel. I was thinking about them. It started with a text. Melissa, you doing anything Saturday night? I stared at it longer than I should have. Rachel was in the shower. I could hear the hiss of water, the occasional thump of her shampoo bottle against the tile, and I knew she'd be getting ready for another night out. Another date night. Without me. I thumbed a reply. Me. Not unless you count drinking whiskey and watching YouTube like a depressed dad. A bubble popped up immediately. Melissa, that's tragic. Come over. Kara and I are having a girls' night. You can be our emotional support man. I smiled despite myself. I didn't ask if Rachel knew. I didn't care. Their place was just a 10-minute drive, a cozy townhouse near downtown, decorated in warm lighting, mid-century furniture, and faint notes of vanilla and citrus drifting in from some expensive candle flickering in the corner. The door opened before I even knocked. Kara stood there barefoot, holding a wine glass, wearing black leggings and an oversized sweater that hung off one shoulder. Her smile widened. Well, if it isn't the man of the hour. I stepped inside. Melissa appeared from the kitchen, holding a second glass already filled for me. No sad playlists, she said. Only 90s R&B and mild emotional instability. I raised an eyebrow. That's oddly specific. It's our sweet spot, Kara said with a wink. The music was soft but rhythmic, the kind of beat that made everything feel a little more fluid, from the sway of Kara's hips as she moved through the room to the way Melissa laughed and curled her hair around her finger when she listened. They'd already opened a second bottle of wine by the time I got there, and the air was thick with that mix of comfort and possibility, like the night hadn't decided what it was going to be yet, and we were just waiting to see how far we'd let it drift. We sat on the floor around a low coffee table, like college kids at a dorm party. No makeup, no pretense. Just stories, wine, and the kind of laughter that felt like it was patching holes in places we didn't know were broken. Somewhere between a second glass and an inside joke I didn't fully understand, Melissa leaned against me. Not overtly. Not obviously. Just enough for me to notice her thigh brushing mine and the warmth of her shoulder pressing lightly against my arm. I didn't move. Kara noticed. Her eyes flicked down, then up, and she didn't say anything, but the corner of her mouth curved slightly. So, she said, how's open marriage life treating you? I let out a dry laugh. Like a slow-motion car crash I'm not allowed to get out of. Melissa chuckled. That's way too accurate. Do you talk to her? Kara asked, topping off my glass. About what? Her dates? Her lovers? Her new lease on freedom? You know, Melissa said gently, you're allowed to want things too. That hung in the air for a moment too long. I didn't ask for this, I said. We know, Kara replied. And she did. They both did. The room got quieter after that. Not awkward, but heavier. The kind of quiet that hums underneath the surface when people are thinking things they're too scared to say. Melissa broke it first. Remember that trip we all took to the lake house? 2 summers ago? I nodded. Kara grinned. You and I beat everyone at Cards Against Humanity. You cheated, I said. No, she smirked. I distracted you. You wore that yellow bikini, Melissa added, eyes twinkling. No one stood a chance. There was a pause, the kind that wasn't silence, but tension, slow and warm and unmistakably charged. I looked at them. Kara, with her bare legs curled beneath her, wine glass tucked between her fingers like an afterthought. Melissa, hair cascading over her shoulder, eyes locked on mine like she was reading something I hadn't even said out loud. And that's when I realized they weren't just playing around. They were choosing this moment. With me. I didn't move. Not yet. Kara shifted closer, brushing something off my shoulder that wasn't there. You're not invisible, you know. Not to us. Melissa's voice was softer now. We see you. That hit harder than anything Rachel had said in months. They weren't trying to seduce me. Not in the cliché, movie scene way. They were offering something deeper. Something laced in curiosity, compassion, and hunger. I leaned back, eyes closing for just a second. Not because I was tired, but because I didn't trust what would happen if I kept looking at them. The space between us crackled. Kara moved first. She shifted so her knee brushed mine, deliberately, and didn't pull away. Then Melissa reached for my hand. Just held it. No pressure. No expectations. Just that, skin against skin. You okay? Kara whispered. No one had asked me that in weeks. No, I admitted. Melissa squeezed my hand. Then stay a while. I didn't sleep with them that night. But I didn't leave either. We stayed up talking until nearly 3 a.m., sprawled out on the couch, legs tangled under a shared blanket. Kara's head on my shoulder, Melissa curled at my side. There were moments when lips were close, when breath grew shallow, when the warmth between us nearly crossed the line. But it didn't. Not yet. Still, when I left that morning just before sunrise, I knew something had changed. Not just between them and me, but inside me. A threshold had been quietly crossed, not physical, but emotional. And maybe more dangerous because of it. Because now, I knew what it felt like to be wanted again. And it wasn't my wife who made me feel that way. I didn't see them for 3 days after that night. It wasn't planned. Life just got in the way. Meetings, overtime, school runs. Rachel barely noticed the shift in my routine. She was too busy getting ready for her next evening out, with a new scent I didn't recognize and makeup applied like she was starring in someone else's movie. She didn't ask where I'd been, or why I'd come home late. Just like she didn't ask why I didn't bother checking in anymore. I suppose when you give someone permission to have sex with strangers, you lose the right to care where they go. Still, part of me wondered if she sensed it, that slow, invisible shifting of gravity. Because I felt it. Every minute of it. And then, on Thursday night, I got the text. Kara, wine and movies. Come over. Don't make us drink alone. It wasn't flirtatious. It wasn't suggestive. It was casual. And yet, I felt that same hum in my chest as I grabbed my keys. Melissa answered the door this time, barefoot in loose sweatpants and a fitted black tank top that hugged her frame just enough to blur the line between cozy and captivating. Her hair was up in a messy knot, strands falling over her cheek in a way that didn't feel accidental. Wow, she said, grinning. You actually came. You didn't think I would? She shrugged. We weren't sure. You've been quiet. I've been thinking. Kara's voice floated from the kitchen. That's dangerous. I stepped inside, and again I felt it, that gentle charge in the air. Familiar now, but no less potent. The wine was already open, the same smooth Cabernet from the other night, poured generously. Kara handed me a glass and gave my chest a light tap. You've been working out again. Every morning, I said, sipping. Melissa leaned against the counter, watching me. It's starting to show. I didn't reply, but I saw the flicker in her eyes, and the way Kara's grin tightened slightly at the edge, like she'd noticed the tension too. We moved to the couch, some old rom-com playing in the background, but none of us were really watching. It was just noise. Filler. Our conversation drifted from favorite movies to embarrassing high school stories, to that inevitable, slowly intensifying edge we kept dancing around. Kara was beside me. Melissa was on the floor, leaning back against the couch near my legs, her arm brushing my shin every time she adjusted her seat. And then it happened. Kara laughed at something I said. One of those deep, full-body laughs that make you feel like you just said something brilliant. She leaned into me, her head falling against my shoulder. She didn't move away. Neither did I. She stayed there for maybe 20 seconds, then lifted her head slowly. Her eyes met mine. We didn't say a word. Her face hovered there, close. Too close. Her breath warm. And then she kissed my cheek. Soft. lingering, just enough to blur the line between friendly and not. My pulse kicked. Melissa saw it. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not with jealousy, more like she was reading the shift and deciding what to do with it. She climbed up onto the couch, curling beside me on the opposite side. Now I was between them, heat on both flanks. I laughed nervously. Is this how horror movies start? Melissa smirked. Only if we're the villains. Kara's hand rested on my forearm. Casual. Familiar. Melissa reached for my other hand. You seem tense. I wonder why. Maybe you need to relax, Kara said. Let someone else take care of you for once. Her words hit deeper than they should have. Because that's exactly what I hadn't had in months. Someone who wanted to care for me. Touch me without obligation. Look at me like I was more than a placeholder. And in that moment, I let it happen. I didn't stop Kara when her hand slipped under my forearm and rested on my thigh. Not high, not inappropriate, but not distant either. I didn't stop Melissa when she leaned her head against my shoulder and exhaled like she belonged there. I closed my eyes. I let their presence settle into me like warmth in winter. There was no sex, no breathless undressing, no tangled sheets. But the boundary? It was crossed the second I wanted it. When I left that night, I could still feel them on me. In the faint scent of Kara's coconut shampoo clinging to my shirt, in the softness of Melissa's cheek against my shoulder. Their laughter echoed in my ears as I climbed into my car. I didn't drive straight home. I sat in the driveway for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, wondering what I was becoming, or maybe, what I was finally allowing myself to be. It wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about gravity. How long could I stand between two forces before I stopped resisting? When I walked inside, Rachel was already home. She sat on the couch, legs curled under her, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when she heard the door. You're late, she said, not accusatory, just acknowledging. So are you? I replied. She didn't ask where I'd been. I didn't ask where she had. Instead, I walked past her and up the stairs. For once, I didn't look back. Because part of me was still on that couch, between two women who weren't my wife, who noticed me, who wanted me there. Rachel left Friday afternoon with a duffel bag slung over her shoulder and her smile too bright to be for me. Going far? I asked, leaning against the doorway. Just a weekend out of town, she said, avoiding my eyes. I need a reset. I nodded once. Enjoy. No questions. No judgment. That was the unspoken agreement. She took her freedom, and I wore silence like armor. She hesitated for a second at the door, as if waiting for something. Maybe a fight, maybe a plea to stay, but I gave her nothing. She turned and walked out. And that was the last I thought of her that weekend. Because the moment the car disappeared from the driveway, I texted Melissa. Me, she's gone. All weekend. 3 dots. Then, Melissa, you free tonight? Me, I'm yours. They didn't make me come to them this time. Instead, they came to me. It was late, around 9:30, when my doorbell rang. I was already 2 drinks in, not from nerves, but anticipation. The house was clean, candles lit, music low. Rachel hadn't left behind her scent this time. It was neutral, blank, like she had already faded from the walls. Melissa stood in the doorway wearing a long beige coat that hit mid-thigh, her hair down and wavy. Kara stood just behind her, leather jacket, lips red, her eyes scanning me slowly as I opened the door. We brought wine, Kara said, holding up a bottle of Shiraz. And bad decisions. Come in, I said, stepping aside. They did. And the moment the door closed, the energy shifted. There was no pretense. No awkward conversation about movies or playlists. This wasn't a casual get-together. This was intention wearing the shape of 2 women who had already made up their minds. We sat on the couch, but the air was different, thicker. Melissa curled next to me, her thigh pressed to mine. Kara took the other side, sitting close but facing me, one leg tucked under her, the other resting lightly against mine. Wine poured. Hands touched. No apologies. At one point, Kara leaned in to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear, but her fingers lingered on my jaw, tracing the edge of it. You've been patient, she whispered. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Her hand slid to my chest, splaying across my shirt like it belonged there. Melissa moved at the same time, her fingers drifting along my arm, slow and light, like she was mapping the veins. Still, I didn't move. Not yet. Not until Kara leaned forward, lips brushing my ear. Do you want us here? I turned my head. Our faces were inches apart. Yes. It started with Melissa. She shifted closer, her lips finding mine in a slow, exploratory kiss, soft, hesitant, then deepening. Her hand rested on my chest, rising and falling with each breath. Then Kara's fingers brushed the back of my neck, and her lips replaced Melissa's, like passing a secret from one mouth to another. It wasn't wild. It wasn't chaotic. It was controlled, measured, a quiet rebellion. By the time we made it to the bedroom, we were tangled in laughter and touches, their bodies warm and real against mine. There was no guilt, not even when Melissa kissed down my chest, or when Kara whispered my name like a question she already knew the answer to. We didn't sleep much, but it wasn't about sex, not really. That was just the medium. It was about presence, touch, being seen. Afterward, the three of us lay across the bed, tangled in sheets and half-spoken thoughts. Kara rested her head on my chest, fingers tracing circles against my stomach. Melissa was curled at my side, her hand still wrapped around mine. It was the most peaceful I'd felt in months. You okay? Melissa asked softly. I nodded. Yeah. You don't feel guilty? Kara whispered. I thought about that for a long second. No, I said. I feel alive. Melissa shifted, pressing a kiss to my shoulder. Good. You should. Saturday bled into Sunday. We didn't leave the house. They brought overnight bags like they knew this wasn't going to be one of those nights you walk away from. We cooked eggs in the morning. Melissa wore my shirt, and Kara danced barefoot in the kitchen while the coffee brewed. It felt like a fever dream. A parallel life I'd stumbled into. One that wasn't supposed to exist, but now I didn't want to let go of. They didn't talk about Rachel. Neither did I. It wasn't about her. Not anymore. Sunday night came with a weight I hadn't anticipated. As the girls packed up their things, I walked them to the door. No drama. No awkward goodbyes. Just a shared look. Something unspoken. And the faint scent of perfume lingering in the air after they stepped out into the night. I stood there for a long time. Then I locked the door. Rachel would be home soon. But something in me had changed. She thought this was a game of freedom. A hall pass. A harmless thrill. But this wasn't about payback. This was about rediscovering the parts of myself I thought had been lost, buried under years of neglect, compromise, and pretending. And now I had a secret. A beautiful, dangerous secret. And it was no longer hers to hold. Rachel came back late Sunday evening. She didn't announce herself, didn't send a heads-up text, didn't call. I just heard the door open and the sound of her suitcase rolling over the threshold. Her heels clicked lightly against the hardwood. The familiar rhythm of someone returning home. Except it wasn't home anymore. Not for me. I was in the kitchen, sipping tea, not whiskey. I hadn't wanted alcohol. I was still carrying the scent of Melissa's skin on my wrist, the memory of Kara's fingers tracing circles on my back while I dozed off that morning. I didn't look up as Rachel entered. I heard the suitcase stop in the hallway. I imagined her standing there, taking in the soft light, the neatly stacked dishes, the fact that I hadn't been waiting for her. She cleared her throat. Hey. I took a sip of tea. Hey. She walked in, dropped her purse on the table. You look rested. I am. She blinked. That's good. I finally looked up at her. How was your weekend? She hesitated, just for a beat. Nice. Quiet. Spa retreat with some people from the mindfulness group. Mindfulness group. Right. I didn't call her out. I didn't flinch. I just nodded. Sounds relaxing. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Did you do anything? A few things. Her eyes narrowed slightly. With anyone I know? There it was. The first twitch of suspicion. The first sting of insecurity. I didn't answer. Not directly. I just smiled, slow and calm. I stayed busy. She opened the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, then leaned against the counter like she used to, as if the kitchen were still her stage. But I wasn't the audience anymore. She looked me over, eyes scanning my shoulders, my jaw, my chest. You're dressing different lately. Feels better. And you've lost weight. Intentional. She took a sip of water, trying to hold on to her composure. You're glowing or something. I held her gaze. I feel lighter. The words landed like a brick. She didn't say anything, just stared at me like she was trying to see something that wasn't there anymore. Because it wasn't. The man who once clung to her approval, who lay awake wondering where she was, who she was with, what he lacked. That man had died sometime between Friday night and Sunday morning. And this version of me? He didn't need her gaze to feel seen. She tried to reset the tone. I'm glad you're feeling better. I was worried. No need, I said, voice steady. I figured things out. Her smile wavered. What things? I didn't answer. Instead, I stepped past her, setting my mug in the sink. Her perfume, that bold, musky blend she thought made her feel powerful, hit my nose as I passed. It didn't stir anything in me anymore. You seem different, she said behind me. I am. She waited, but I didn't offer more. I could feel her watching me, trying to piece it together. This shift in posture, in tone, in presence. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just done waiting. And that unnerved her more than yelling ever could. Later that night, I sat on the patio with a book in my lap and a blanket over my knees. The air was crisp, the sky clear. The kind of night that made you feel like the world was starting over. Rachel joined me, or tried to. She came outside with 2 glasses of wine, offered one to me without speaking. I didn't take it. I'm not drinking tonight, I said. She looked thrown. You always drink on Sundays. Not anymore. She sat down beside me anyway. We sat in silence for a long time. I read. She sipped her wine and stared into the dark like it might tell her something. Finally, she asked, "Do you still love me?" I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to see what she did with the silence. She didn't fill it. Eventually, I closed the book. I don't know, I said honestly. I loved you. I still care. But I don't know what this is anymore. I thought you were okay with it, she whispered. You thought I'd stay the same? I corrected. Her face tightened. And now I'm living my life. She looked at me, searching. Are you seeing someone? I held her gaze. I didn't blink. Are you? She looked away first. Let's not play games, Rachel, I said. We opened the door. You walked through it. Did you think I'd just stand in the frame forever? She didn't answer, because she already knew. When we went to bed that night, we didn't touch. Not even a brush of shoulders beneath the sheets. The distance between us had grown wider than the mattress. She lay awake longer than I did. I could feel it. The rustling, the tension, the weight of unspoken things pressing down on her like gravity. But I slept fine, because for the first time since she sat me down at that dinner table and told me she wanted to open our marriage, I felt free, and she knew it. That's what rattled her. Not what I'd done, not what I might do, but that I no longer needed her to care. It's funny how quickly you can slip into 2 lives without meaning to. One version of me still came home on time. I still folded laundry, still made dinner some nights, still responded when Rachel asked if we needed more milk or if I'd seen her charger. The other version of me existed in shadows. Quiet dinners with Melissa and Kara, stolen afternoons, long weekends filled with breathless laughter and tangled sheets. By the time October rolled around, the double life wasn't just habit, it was a rhythm. On Wednesdays, Rachel had yoga and drinks. On Fridays, she'd come home late, heels in her hand, eyes glassy from wine and whatever intimacy she'd chosen that night. And on those nights, I never asked. I just smiled, kissed her cheek like a neighbor might, and retreated to the bedroom, where I'd sleep soundly, because I had my own memories to wrap around me now. Melissa liked the mornings. She'd make coffee in her robe, the smell rich and warm, her hair tousled from sleep, her lips still swollen from kissing. She talked in soft tones, always humming under her breath, sometimes sliding across the kitchen in socks like a teenager. Kara liked the nights. Late dinners, music turned up loud, fingers tangled in my belt loops as she whispered in my ear what she wanted, how she wanted it. She was bolder, less filtered, more fire than calm. When she kissed me, it was with her whole body. I lived between them, not just physically, but emotionally. And somehow, it never felt like cheating. Not the way what Rachel did. Maybe because she was the one who cracked the foundation. Maybe because her friends weren't just lovers. They were the first people who made me feel wanted in years. But it wasn't simple. It was never simple. One Saturday afternoon, Kara and I were at the local farmer's market. It was quiet, tucked into a shaded row of booths and flower carts. She wore sunglasses and a sun hat, her hand looped through my arm like we were just another couple killing time. I could get used to this, she said, squeezing my arm. Used to what? Being the one on your arm. I looked at her. She smiled, soft but loaded. Don't look so scared. I'm not scared, I said. I just don't want to ruin this. You won't, she said. But eventually, Rachel's going to figure it out. I didn't say anything. Because Kara wasn't wrong. Rachel wasn't oblivious. She wasn't stupid. She'd started watching me more closely, asking little things, where I was going, who I was seeing. Casual questions, light and joking, but I could feel the edge behind them, the tension building. And it didn't help that Melissa had started getting attached. She stayed over one night when Kara was out of town. Just the two of us. We made dinner together, slow and intimate, not rushed like we usually were. She danced in the kitchen to some lo-fi playlist, and we ended up on the couch, wrapped in a throw blanket, her head on my chest. "You're different when it's just me," she said quietly. "How so?" "Less guarded. Like I'm seeing a part of you that Kara doesn't get." I didn't know what to say. She looked up at me. "Do you ever think about what this could be if it were just us?" My heart beat faster. "Melissa, I know it's not like that. I'm not asking you to choose. She paused, fingers tightening against my chest. "Sometimes I forget what it feels like to be this close to someone. And I don't want to forget again." I kissed her forehead. I didn't make promises, but I didn't push her away either. And maybe that was worse. Meanwhile, Rachel's suspicion grew. She started texting during the day, not with sweetness, but with subtle interrogation. "Rachel, you working late again?" "Me, yeah." Conference call ran long. "Rachel, thought I heard your car pull up last night around 10. Me, maybe you imagined it." The truth was, she had heard my car. I'd come back from Kara's place, smelling like jasmine and wine, my shirt rumpled from fingers that hadn't belonged to my wife in a very long time. But I didn't lie to her face. I didn't need to. She was starting to lie to herself. At home, I was calm, composed. I played the part well. I cooked dinner once a week. I complimented her hair when she changed it. I even picked up groceries without being asked. But my eyes were different. My silence, deeper. She knew something was shifting, that her grip on the dynamic she thought she controlled was slipping. One night, she came to bed in lingerie, something she hadn't done in almost a year. She slid under the covers and leaned over me, pressing a kiss to my neck. "You're so quiet lately," she whispered. I opened my eyes. "You're not the only one with secrets anymore." She pulled back, blinking. "What does that mean?" I turned my head. Exactly what it sounds like. She didn't sleep that night. I could hear her breathing, short, restless, turning under the sheets. And I slept like a rock. Because in my other life, I was already whole, already seen, already loved. It began with glances. Not mine, hers. Rachel had always carried herself like someone beyond questioning. Like nothing in the room could ever touch her. Not your gaze, not your doubts, not your disappointment. She floated above it all, serene and distant. But lately, her confidence had cracks. I noticed it the first time at a neighborhood dinner party. We were seated at opposite ends of the table. I was laughing with Melissa and Kara, who were sitting just beside me. The three of us trading inside jokes like old friends. Kara's hand brushed mine as she reached for the wine. Melissa leaned a little closer than necessary when she spoke. Rachel saw it all. Her smile stayed in place, but her eyes didn't. They lingered too long. Watched too carefully. Afterward, in the car, she was quiet. Until she wasn't. "You seemed awfully close with my friends tonight," she said, staring out the window. I didn't look at her. "They're your friends." She turned her head slowly. "What's that supposed to mean? I haven't seen you spend more than 5 minutes with them in months." She didn't respond right away. "You're deflecting," she finally said. "No," I said calmly. "I'm just observing." She looked like she wanted to say more, but stopped. Maybe she didn't like how easily I met her eyes now. How I didn't shrink under her suspicion. It was easier for her when I was the broken one. When I sat silent at the kitchen table, trying to swallow the lump in my throat while she left for a weekend retreat. Now, the script had flipped, and it scared her. The next morning, she made coffee for both of us. A small gesture, too deliberate. She wore a tank top that clung to her chest like static. No bra, no subtlety. "Plans today?" she asked, setting my mug down in front of me. I sipped without thanking her. "Gym. Then some errands." "Errands," she repeated. "With who?" I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" She looked down. "Just asking. You never used to." She hesitated. "Maybe I care more than you think." I didn't reply, because it wasn't care. It was fear. Rachel didn't like being out of control. She didn't like not knowing. That was her whole thing, managing perception. When she stepped out with other men, it was always wrapped in polished explanations. Growth, independence, boundaries. But now I was the one moving in the shadows. And she hated it. She started watching me more closely. Little things. She'd peek at my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She'd come into the garage when I was on calls and linger too long, pretending to look for something. She changed her routine, too. Suddenly, she wanted to cook dinner more often. She suggested we go for a hike. She offered to join me at the gym. I let her try. I let her stand beside me, reaching for something already lost. But I didn't reach back. Melissa and Kara noticed the shift, too. One night, as the three of us lay in bed, a twisted arrangement of limbs and whispers, Kara laughed quietly and said, "She's watching you now. She thinks she's losing him," Melissa added, trailing her fingers along my chest. "She has lost me," I said. They both grew quiet for a moment. Melissa kissed my shoulder. "Do you still love her?" "I don't know." Kara leaned in, her lips near my ear. "You don't look at her the way you look at us." I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because they were right. Things boiled over the night. Rachel came home early. She was supposed to be out, dinner with a coworker, some new guy she'd been playing coy about for weeks. I didn't ask questions. I'd stopped caring. I was at home, shirtless, a half-empty bottle of wine on the table. Melissa was on the couch, barefoot and curled up in my old hoodie, laughing at something I'd just whispered. Rachel walked in through the garage door and stopped cold. The silence hit first, sharp, crackling, then her voice, low and trembling. "What the fuck is going on?" Melissa stood slowly. I didn't move. Rachel's eyes darted from her to me and back again. "You're fucking my friend?" she asked, voice rising. I stood now, calm, steady. "You told me we could see other people." "Other people," she spat. "Not my friends." I stepped closer. "You didn't say that. You didn't say anything. You gave yourself permission and expected me to sit quietly while you disappeared into hotel rooms and came home smelling like a stranger." Her face paled. Melissa spoke, her voice calm. "You walked away from him before we ever crossed a line." Rachel turned to her. "You're supposed to be my friend." "I was," Melissa said. "But you stopped being a wife." Silence again, thicker than ever. Rachel looked back at me, her voice trembling now. "Is it just her?" I didn't answer, because in that moment, she knew. The rest of the night unraveled quietly. Melissa slipped out the front door, giving me a long look before she left. Rachel sat at the kitchen island, staring down into her glass of water like it might have answers. I didn't apologize. She didn't ask me to. Instead, she whispered, "I didn't think you'd ever stop chasing me." And I said, "That's your mistake." The next morning, she made coffee again. She didn't say a word. Neither did I, because now she was the one living in the house with the ghost of something she used to control, and I was the one haunting her. It was almost midnight when she came into the room. I was already in bed, lying on top of the sheets in nothing but a pair of gym shorts. The light from the hallway cut across the floor, and in it, Rachel's silhouette stood motionless for a long moment. Then she stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and leaned against it. Her arms were crossed, but her posture was off. Not confrontational, not composed. She was holding herself like someone trying to hold something else in. Her voice was low. "Are you sleeping with them?" There was no need to ask who she meant. Melissa, Kara, her best friends. I sat up slowly, letting the silence stretch, letting her wait. "Do you want the truth?" I asked, "or something easier to digest?" She flinched, just barely. "The truth." I nodded once. "Yes." Her breath caught. She didn't expect me to say it out loud. She expected denial, a lie, some careful manipulation like she used to offer me. Instead, I gave her the truth, just like she'd asked. Her face shifted, first to anger, jaw tightening, eyes narrowing, but then to something worse. Hurt. The kind of hurt that comes when your game turns on you. "How long?" she asked, her voice cracking. I shrugged. "A while." She crossed the room, almost stumbling. "Was it revenge?" I looked her in the eyes. "No." "Then why?" she hissed. "Why them?" "You wanted an open marriage," I said calmly. "You wanted freedom. I gave it to you." I stepped back. "I let you run." "You punished me," she said. "You didn't talk. You didn't fight. You just let me go. And now this. You sneak behind my back with my friends?" I laughed softly. "You want to talk about sneaking?" She stared at me. "All those nights," I continued, "when you came home late, smelling like some guy's cologne, telling me about your growth and boundaries and how we were evolving as people, you weren't evolving. You were escaping." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "You wanted to fuck other men, I said plainly. But you still wanted me sitting at the dinner table. Still wanted me keeping the lights on, paying the mortgage, playing house. That's not fair. No. You know what's not fair? I stood now, stepping around the bed to face her. What's not fair is that I gave you a chance to be honest. You gave me a choice without room for negotiation. You made the rules. And now that I've stopped following them, you're upset? She stared at the floor. I didn't think it would hurt this much, she whispered. Neither did I. She looked up sharply. So this is it. You're leaving? I shook my head. I don't need to leave. She blinked. What? I don't need to do anything, Rachel, I said. You set this in motion. I just stopped trying to hold on. You don't love me anymore. I'm not sure you ever gave me the chance. The words cut deeper than anything I'd said. I saw it in the way she staggered back a half step, her hand gripping the edge of the dresser like it might keep her from falling. I didn't mean to ruin us, she said quietly. I know, I said. But you did. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was dense, thick, the weight of everything we hadn't said for the last year hanging in the space between us. Rachel sat down on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking slightly. You were supposed to be safe, she whispered. I was, I replied, until I realized safe meant invisible to you. She looked up at me, eyes rimmed red. Do you still want to fix this? I took a long breath. I don't think this is broken in a way that can be fixed. Her face crumpled. I didn't reach for her, not out of spite, but because I knew now, truly, that the only reason she wanted to hold on was because she'd lost control, not because she missed me, not because she suddenly saw my value, but because she feared what it meant to be on the other side of the choices she made. You had your freedom, I said, softer now. I just finally took mine. She looked at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Maybe she didn't. Maybe that was the real tragedy, not the cheating, not the sex, not the betrayals, but the fact that she never really saw me at all. And now that she did, it was too late. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. She took a blanket and went to the guest room, closing the door with a click that felt more like an admission than an act of spite. And I lay in bed, our bed, listening to the silence she'd left behind. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt clean, like something inside me had finally been flushed out. The truth was exposed. And now, I could finally stop pretending. So could she. The house didn't feel like a battleground. It felt like a graveyard. Quiet. Still. Full of things that used to mean something. Rachel moved around like a ghost in her own life. She stopped talking unless necessary. No more fake smiles, no passive-aggressive jabs, no late-night justifications. Just silence. And I didn't break it. I didn't need to. Because the war was over. And I had won. But not in the way I once fantasized about. Not with some grand explosion or final insult shouted through tears. No, my victory was quiet. It was in the way she looked at me now, eyes cautious, uncertain, scanning for the man she used to control, but finding someone entirely different. It was in the way she hesitated before asking even simple questions. Have you seen my charger? Did you pick up the dry cleaning? Simple, mundane, domestic things. Now laced with tension, like every word might expose the brokenness she tried so hard to ignore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't cold. But I was untouchable. And that's what shattered her. Her friends stopped calling her. It happened gradually, then all at once. First it was fewer texts from Melissa, then none at all. Kara stopped liking her posts on social media. Inside jokes stopped landing. Group chats went silent. Their friendship, once built on shared brunches and late-night gossip, eroded into a brittle silence neither side dared to cross. She noticed. Of course she noticed. I caught her sitting on the back porch one evening, phone in hand, scrolling through old photos of the three of them. A lakeside selfie, a girl's trip to the vineyard, smiles painted over what now looked like an elaborate betrayal, simmering in the background. She didn't cry, but her face said more than tears ever could. She had not only lost me, she had lost them too. And all of it, by her own hand. People always think revenge is about rage, screaming, destruction, but that's the easy version. The real revenge is peace. Real revenge is showing up, day after day, with your shoulders back and your eyes steady, while the person who tried to break you can't even look at themselves in the mirror. And I did just that. I woke up early. I worked out. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. I smiled at the neighbors. I picked up new clothes that actually fit the man I'd become. And Rachel? She started shrinking. Not physically, though she looked smaller somehow. Quieter. As if she were trying to disappear into the same shadows she once danced inside so freely. But emotionally, she was unraveling. She didn't flirt on the phone anymore. Didn't toss her hair with that smug smirk when heading out the door. She barely left the house at all. Because now, she didn't know who I was anymore. And that terrified her. A month passed like that. Then one night, she sat me down at the kitchen table, the same table where it all began. The place where she once looked me in the eyes and said, so calmly, so rehearsed, I think we should try an open marriage. Now, she couldn't even meet my gaze. I want to talk, she said. I didn't say anything. She continued. I've made mistakes. I thought I wanted freedom, but you didn't think, I cut in. You wanted. She swallowed hard. I thought I was doing what was right for me. You were. She blinked, surprised. I'm not angry at you anymore, Rachel, I said. I understand why you did it. I really do. Her eyes began to water. But you need to understand something too, I added. You didn't just find yourself. You lost me in the process. I know, she whispered. And I hate that. I miss you. I nodded slowly. I miss who we used to be, she continued. Before everything. I looked down at the table. I don't, I said. And that was the moment it hit her, the final blow. Not because I said it cruelly, but because I meant it. Because I wasn't bitter. I wasn't performing. I was simply done. She moved out 2 weeks later. Told her family it was mutual, that we grew apart. And maybe, in the cleanest sense of it, we did. But I knew better. She opened the door. She just didn't expect me to walk through it with purpose. I still see Melissa sometimes. Less often now, but when I do, it's easy. Natural. There's no more fire behind it, just warmth. We don't talk about Rachel. We don't need to. That part of our lives is over. Kara texts now, and then, quick hellos, a meme here and there. Nothing more. That story, too, has reached its final chapter. Because this was never about forever. It was about reclamation. About realizing I had value long before I started chasing it in someone else's eyes. I walk lighter now. Not because I won, but because I let go. Let go of the need to fix her. Let go of the need to punish her. Let go of the weight she handed me when she told me, without blinking, I think we should try an open marriage. She opened the cage. I just never came.